There's a moment, if you've ever sat with an elderly relative who grew up close to the land, you know the one when they mention a plant name like it's the most natural thing in the world? Casually the way you'd say aspirin, and you realize you don't know it. That somewhere between their generation and yours, an entire library of knowledge quietly closed its doors. What if those remedies your great-grandmother brewed for fever and sleeplessness weren't superstition? Modern laboratories are spending millions of dollars confirming chemistry those women already knew from experience. Today, 20 forgotten herbs, plants that healed frontier families, that got communities through centuries without hospitals. That modern medicine walked away from not because they stopped working, but because you can't patent what grows freely in a field. Number 8 was so valued in ancient Rome, soldiers were paid in it. Number 20 is so ordinary, you've probably dismissed it 100 times. Let's begin. Number 1, Elderberry Sambucus nigra, the grandmother's medicine. There is not a traditional culture in the northern hemisphere that did not know the elder tree. From the Norse healers who called it the medicine chest of the common people to the Appalachian granny women who kept dried elderberries through winter like a family heirloom. The Cherokee used it for fevers, the Iroquois for colds. European folk medicine prescribed elderberry syrup for viral illness for centuries. A 2016 study in Nutrients found elderberry supplementation reduced cold duration by an average of 2 days. The mechanism, anthocyanins that interfere with viral replication and stimulate immune response. Elderberry immune syrup, simmer 2 cups. Dried elderberries in 4 cups water with a cinnamon stick, 4 cloves, and 1 tablespoon grated ginger for 45 minutes. Mash, strain, cool, stir in 1 cup raw honey. 1 tablespoon daily to prevent 1 tablespoon every few hours at first sign of illness. Always cook elderberries before use. Raw berries can cause nausea. Think of it as the immune support every grandmother in the northern hemisphere kept on her shelf, not because a trial told her it worked, but because generations of results did. Number 2, Ashwagandha withania somnifera, the ancient stress root. The 3,000-year-old Ayurvedic text Charaka Samhita describes a root that gives the strength of a horse, restores vitality depleted by exhaustion, and brings the nervous system back to calm. Ashwagandha. They were not exaggerating. Withania somnifera, a small woody shrub of the dry regions of India, for 3,000 years prescribed for physical depletion, chronic stress, and exhaustion that settles into the bones. Every pioneer homesteader would have recognized the condition. A 2019 study in Medicine found ashwagandha root extract produced a 27.9% reduction in serum cortisol compared to placebo. Ashwagandha evening latte. Warm 2 cups milk. Whisk in 1 teaspoon ashwagandha powder, half teaspoon cinnamon, quarter teaspoon cardamom. Pinch of black pepper piperine increases absorption by up to 2,000%. Sweeten with honey. Drink nightly for 2 to 4 weeks. Think of it as the root that has been rebuilding depleted people for 3,000 years. The conditions it treats have never changed. Number 3, lemon balm, Melissa officinalis, the bee's herb that heals humans. The ancient Greeks named this plant after a goddess, Melissa, the divine beekeeper, because it was irresistible to bees. The people growing it for the bees quickly noticed what it did for them too. Melissa officinalis, a bushy perennial with heart-shaped, lemon-scented leaves. Carmelite nuns prepared a famous nervous system tonic from it for over 300 years. A 2014 double-blind trial demonstrated significant reductions in anxiety and insomnia. Research has confirmed antiviral effects against herpes simplex, validating traditional topical use for cold sores. Lemonbalm.com tea. 2 tablespoons fresh leaves or 1 tablespoon dried per cup of just boiled water. Cover the mug to trap volatile oils. Steep 10 minutes. 1 to 2 cups daily for anxiety. A strong cup 30 minutes before bed for sleep. Think of it as the herb the bees chose before we did. They always knew something about nectar that we're still learning. Number 4, holy basil. Tulsi, Asimum tenuiflorum, sacred in the East, forgotten in the West in India. This plant grows in virtually every Hindu household, planted at the entrance of homes, watered as an act of devotion. Across 3,000 years of Ayurvedic tradition, it occupies the center of the healing garden. Asimum tenuiflorum, an adaptogen that helps the body adapt to stress in whatever form it takes. Research shows measurable cortisol reductions, immune support, blood sugar management, and cognitive enhancement. A 2012 study found significant improvements in memory and reaction time in adults taking standardized Tulsi extract. Tulsi daily tea. Bring 2 cups water slowly to a simmer with a small handful of fresh Tulsi or 2 teaspoons dried. Never boil. Gentle heat preserves volatile oils. Simmer 5 minutes. Strain, sweeten with honey. 1 cup morning, one afternoon. Think of it as the herb an entire civilization considered sacred enough to plant at every entrance. They were being observant, not superstitious. Number 5. Motherwort Lenaris cardiaca, the herb for the anxious heart. The Latin species name says it plainly. For the heart. Lenaris cardiaca grows in disturbed soils and fence margins, the places near people, as if it knows where it's needed. Culpeper in the 17th century wrote, "There was no better herb to take melancholy vapors from the heart. Modern research has identified the alkaloid linarine with confirmed cardioprotective and anxiolytic activity." Motherwort hot calm tincture. Fill a jar 2/3 with dried motherwort aerial parts. Cover with 80 proof vodka. Seal and steep 6 weeks. Shaking daily. Strain 10 to 20 drops in water as needed for anxiety-related palpitations. Not for use during pregnancy. Think of it as the herb that understood the connection between heart and mind before science had language to describe it. Number 6. Feverfew Tenesitum parthenium, the medieval migraine cure. In the 1970s, a Welsh physician's wife began chewing 3 fresh feverfew leaves daily on the advice of a man reading very old books. After 10 months of daily migraines, her headache stopped. His subsequent research triggered a wave of clinical studies. A landmark 1988 double-blind trial in The Lancet demonstrated significant reduction in migraine frequency and severity. The remedy was 500 years old. Tenesitum parthenium, a bushy perennial with white daisy-like flowers. The active compound parthenolide inhibits platelet aggregation and inflammatory compounds associated with migraine. Feverfew prevention. 3 fresh leaves daily. Eaten with food to minimize mouth irritation. Consistent daily use over weeks is required for cumulative effect, not for use during pregnancy. Think of it as the remedy that a Welsh woman discovered by asking an old man who had been reading very old books. The books had been right for 500 years. Number 7. Woodbetony stachys betonica, the forgotten Saxon sovereign. Sell your coat and buy betony. This phrase appears in ancient Roman texts. It appears again in Anglo-Saxon herbals 1,000 years later, in medieval monastery records from England, Germany, and France. The same phrase traveling 1,000 years across European healing culture because it represented genuine consensus. Stachys betonica, a woodland perennial with soft, hairy leaves and rosy flower spikes. The Anglo-Saxon Lachnanga lists it more frequently than almost any other herb. Modern herbalists recognize it as a nervian and digestive bitter, calming nervous system anxiety through the gut, addressing tension, headaches, soothing, stress-driven, digestive upset. Wood betony tension tea? 2 teaspoons dried wood betony per cup of just boiled water. Steep covered 15 minutes. 1 cup at the first sign of a tension headache. Pleasant, mildly bitter, safe for daily use. Think of it as the herb 1,000 years of European healers considered worth selling a coat for. Number 8. Turmeric Cucamelanga, the golden root worth its weight in gold. In ancient India, turmeric functioned as currency. Cucamelanga, a ginger family rhizome of extraordinary. Golden orange has been used continuously in Ayurvedic medicine for over 4,000 years, and in traditional Chinese medicine for at least 2,000. Modern research has produced over 10,000 published studies. A 2009 study found curcumin comparable to ibuprofen for knee pain in osteoarthritis patients without gastrointestinal damage. Golden milk, warm, 2 cups milk. Whisk in 1 teaspoon turmeric, ½ teaspoon ginger, 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon. Pinch of black pepper, piperine increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%, and a pinch of cayenne, sweetened with honey. 1 cup nightly? Think of it as the golden root that built one of the oldest medical traditions on earth. They valued it like currency because it functioned like medicine. We're at the halfway point. If this is the kind of knowledge you want more of, hit that like button right now and subscribe. New videos every week, connecting the old wisdom with the science that's finally catching up. Let's keep going. Number 9. Hawthorn crataegus monagina, the heart tree. In Ireland, road construction projects have been redesigned to preserve solitary hawthorn trees that local people considered sacred. A thorny shrub producing white flowers in spring and deep red haws in fall. European folk medicine used it specifically for heart conditions for centuries before cardiology existed. The German Commission in Europe's rigorous herbal medicine authority has officially approved standardized hawthorn extract for mild cardiac insufficiency. Multiple trials show measurable improvements in cardiac output and exercise tolerance. Hawthorn berry daily tonic. Simmer 2 cups dried hawthorn berries in 4 cups water for 30 minutes. Mash, simmer 20 more minutes. Strain. Cool. Stir in equal volume of raw honey. 1 tablespoon daily. Long term. slow, deep nourishment, can interact with cardiac medications including the consult your physician. Think of it as the tree the Irish built reverence around from 1,000 years of living close to it and noticing what it did. Number 10, Manus California poppy, Estrozizia californica, the Janelle sleep restorer. California's official state flower, turning hillsides gold every spring, growing wild along roadsides from Baja to British Columbia, and one of the most gentle, well-researched herbal sleep remedies in the North American native plant pharmacopoeia. No opioid alkaloids, its own compounds. California Genie Ishochizing produce mild sedation and anxiety relief through entirely different mechanisms. Safe for children. Safe, long-term. The Luseco-Cahuilla and Costanoan nations used it for centuries for restless children and difficult sleep. California Poppy Sleep Tea. 1 to 2 teaspoons dried aerial parts per cup of just boiled water. Steep covered 15 minutes. Drink 30 minutes before bed. Think of it as the flower California put on its flag because its grandparents already knew what it did. Number 11, Cleavers, Gallium apirini. The sticky spring cleanser. You know, this plant, the one clinging to your socks on every spring hike. Goosegrass, Sticky Willy. Across England, Ireland, France, and Germany, the same spring tradition. Gather fresh cleavers. Cold just them. Drink for 2 to 3 weeks to move the lymphatic system after winter's sedentary months. Culpeper called it excellent for cleansing the blood. He was describing lymphatic stimulation. Fresh spring cleavers cold juice do not heat. Active constituents are heat sensitive. Blend a double handful of fresh spring cleavers with 1 cup cold water. Strain 1, 2, 3 tablespoons in cold water daily for 2 to 3 weeks in early spring. Think of it as the plant that has been grabbing at you every spring, trying to get your attention while you brushed it off your socks. Number 12, Boneset Eupatorium perfoliatum, the flu fighter that kept America alive. During the great influenza and typhoid epidemics of the 19th century, before antibiotics, before antivirals, virtually every American household kept one herb specifically for these moments. Eupatorium perfoliatum, boneset, named for breakbone fever influenza. Because this plant addressed the deep muscle aching most reliably, the Mohegan Cherokee and eclectic physicians all used it the same way. Hot infusion at the very onset of flu. Modern research has identified immunostimulant polysaccharides consistent with these traditional uses. Boneset flu onset tea, 1 to 2 teaspoons dried boneset per cup of just boiled water. Steep, drink hot at the absolute first sign of flu. Get into bed. The tea is intensely bitter. The generations who relied on it found that worth it. Think of it as the herb that kept American families alive through the epidemics that modern medicine wasn't there to address. Number 30, toothache plant Acmella lauratia, the instant numbing herb. Herbalists use this plant as a demonstration when they want to make a lasting impression on a skeptic. They hand over a fresh flower and ask the person to chew it. Within seconds, not minutes, seconds, the entire mouth goes numb. A tingling, buzzing, electric numbness that spreads and radiates. First-time experiencers consistently react with genuine surprise. This is not subtle. Acmella oleracea, a small annual with yellow and red cone-shaped flowers. Traditional healers across Central and South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia all independently discovered the same application, immediate relief for toothaches, mouth ulcers, and sore throats. The compound responsible is spilanthyl, an alchemide that activates then desensitizes pain receptors in a manner similar to dental anesthesia. Research has confirmed local anesthetic, analgesic, and antimicrobial effects. Direct application. Chew 1 fresh flower and position it against the painful tooth or gum. Numbing begins within 60 seconds and can last 30 minutes or more. For a mouth rinse, simmer 2 tablespoons flowers in 2 cups water for 15 minutes. Cool, and hold against the painful area. Think of it as the herb that makes skeptics stop talking the moment they experience it. Some things don't require explanation. Number 14, marshmallow root, Althea officinalis, the original healing mucilage. The word marshmallow exists because of this plant. The original candy developed in 19th century France was made from the root of Althea whipped with sugar and egg whites. When commercial production replaced the actual plant with gelatin, the name stayed. The medicine was lost. Althea a tall, velvety leaf perennial with pale pink flowers growing in damp meadows. Ancient Egyptian medicine used the root for sore throats and intestinal inflammation. Hippocrates prescribed it. Every culture that found this plant found the same use. The thick mucilaginous polysaccharides coat and soothe inflamed mucous membranes throughout the body, from mouth to throat to gut to urinary tract, creating a physical protective barrier while the tissue underneath heals. Marshmallow root cold infusion. 3 tablespoons dried root in a quart jar of room temperature water. Do not use hot water, it degrades the mucilage. Cover and steep for 8 hours or overnight. Strain. Drink throughout the day for sore throats, gastritis, acid reflux, irritable bowel, or urinary tract irritation. Think of it as the candy that forgot it was medicine first. The sweetness was always secondary. Number 15. Solomon's Seal Polygonatum biflorum, the joint and tendon restorer. Deep in the shaded understory of the Eastern American woodland, this plant arches gracefully from the forest floor, ovaries alternating along curving stems, small white bellflowers hanging beneath them in pairs. The name comes from the seal-like scars left by previous year's stems on the root. Polygonatum by Native American nations of the eastern woodlands use the root for musculoskeletal injuries, applied as a poultice to joints, sprains, and torn ligaments. Traditional Chinese medicine has used the related species, yuju, for thousands of years for joint health and connective tissue support. Eclectic physicians of the 19th century called Solomon's seal the great regulator of tendons and ligaments, used specifically for connective tissue that wasn't healing at the expected rate. Modern research has identified steroidal saponins that appear to support both synovial fluid production and collagen integrity in connective tissue. Solomon's seal joint oil. Chop dried root finely. Warm in olive oil in a double boiler at low heat for 4 to 6 hours. Strain, apply to injured joints, tendons, and arthritic areas 2 to 3 times daily, massaging gently into the skin. Think of it as the forest pharmacy that traditional healers found by following the deer paths. Animals have always known. Number 16. Menos Agramonia Agrimonia Eupatoria de Anglo-Saxon Herb. The Anglo-Saxon medical text Lacnunga, one of the oldest surviving documents in English. Medical history lists agrimony among the most valued healing plants known to its authors. A slender perennial of hedgerows and woodland edge with tall spikes of small, bright yellow flowers and a mild, pleasant apricot fragrance when the leaves are crushed. European medicine used agrimony for 3 applications. Consistent across 1,000 years, wound care, where its tannins provide astringent and tissue-tightening effects. Sore throats, where the same tannins tighten inflamed mucous membranes when used as a garment. And diarrhea, where they tone and firm the intestinal lining. The Cherokee Nation used the North American species for the same 3 applications independently. Agrimony sore throat gargle, 3 teaspoons dried agrimony in 1 cup just boiled water. Steep cover 20 minutes for maximum tannin extraction. Cool to a comfortable temperature. Gargle 30 seconds, 3 to 4 times daily. The astringent farming sensation on the mucous membranes is immediate and therapeutic. Think of it as the herb the Anglo-Saxons valued enough to write down. They weren't writing down things that didn't work. Number 17. Elecampane Inula Helenium, the deep lung restorer. The legend says Helen of Troy was gathering this plant when Paris found her, and that it grew wherever her tears fell. The botanical name Helenium preserves that story in the scientific record. What the story cannot contain is the medical reputation that follows this plant across 2,000 years of use for one specific condition: deep, stubborn, lingering respiratory illness. Inula Helenium, a tall perennial reaching 6 feet with enormous basal leaves and sunflower-like yellow flowers. Not for casual coughs, for the deep, wet cough that settles in and stays, for the chronic bronchitis that returns every winter, for the lung tissue that needs coaxing back toward health after a serious illness. Traditional Chinese medicine, European folk medicine, Native American nations who encountered it after introduction, and eclectic physicians all reached for elecampane in exactly these cases and nowhere else. Modern research has confirmed antimicrobial activity against respiratory pathogens and immune-stimulating properties from its sesquiterpene. Elecampane deep lung decoction simmered to tablespoons, chopped dried root in 2 cups water for 20 to 30 minutes. Strain, drink, 1 cup twice daily, 4 weeks of consistent use. This is not a quick fix. It works slowly and deeply. Think of it as the herb that healers saved for the serious cases, because it was made for them. Number 18. Blucohosh Calophyllum thalattroides, the midwife's herb in the hollows of the southern Appalachians. The women who attended births for generations knew their plants with a precision that modern pharmacognosy is only beginning to appreciate. Calophyllum thalattroides. Blue cohosh, a woodland perennial with distinctive blue-green compound leaves and small clusters of yellowish-green flowers, the root was one of the most important herbs in Native American midwifery used by the Menominee, Cherokee, and Iroquois specifically to support uterine health and facilitate labor. Eclectic physicians adopted it in the 19th century after observing its use, incorporating it as a uterine tonic given in the final weeks of pregnancy. Modern research has confirmed uterotonic effects from the alkaloids. Critical blue cohosh must never be used during pregnancy except under direct supervision of a qualified midwife or healthcare provider. This entry is for historical and educational context only. The midwifery tradition that used this plant safely required years of specialized training. Think of it as the herb the midwives knew. Real knowledge applied by trained people in service of the most important work any community entrusts to its healers. Number 19, Plantain plantago major, the green bandage at your feet. Native Americans who first encountered European settlers had a name for this plant: white man's footprint, because wherever Europeans walked, this plant appeared, carried in boot mud across an ocean, establishing itself in every disturbed soil site that followed the spread of settlement. And those same Native Americans recognized immediately what the plant did and began using it, because what it does is visible and immediate. Plantago major. The low-growing weed with oval-ribbed leaves and thin flower spikes in every lawn, garden path, and disturbed roadside in North America. A 2012 randomized controlled trial found plantain ointment improved healing of second-degree burns more effectively than the conventional medical treatment used as the control. Common garden weed outperforms standard medical treatment in a clinical trial. The compounds responsible, aucubine, verbascoside, mucilaginous polysaccharides, have genuine anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and tissue-healing effects. Field first aid. Pick a fresh plantain leaf from an unsprayed area. Crush firmly between your palms or chew briefly. Apply directly to an insect sting. Minor burn, cut, or scrape. Pain from insect stings typically begins decreasing within 2 to 3 minutes. Think of it as the plant that followed humanity across oceans without being invited and silently offered to heal whatever we damaged along the way. Number 20, Mullein verbascum, thapsus, the lungs' best friend. And here we are, the most ordinary, most overlooked, most dismissed plant on this list, the one growing in the gravel median of the highway you drive every day, sending up its dramatic 6-foot flowering spike from a rosette of the largest, softest, most extraordinarily velvety leaves in the North American weed catalog. Verbascum thapsis mullein, the Cherokee, Iroquois, and Delaware nations all used it for chest congestion, asthma, and respiratory infections. European settlers arrived already knowing it, because mullein grows across Europe too, and the healers who came to this continent had been using it for generations. Eclectic physicians of the 19th century considered it one of their most dependable lung herbs. The leaves contain saponins that act as natural expectorants, loosening and moving mucus, rather than suppressing the cough that is the body's mechanism for clearing it. Mullein respiratory tea, 2 teaspoons, dried mullein leaves per cup of just boiled water. Steep covered 15 minutes. Strain through fine cloth carefully to remove every leaf hair. Drink 2 to 3 cups daily during chest colds or bronchitis. Mullein flower ear oil. Pack fresh mullein flowers loosely in a small jar. Cover with olive oil. Place in a warm, sunny spot for several hours. Strain. Warm to body temperature before applying 2 to 3 drops for earache from congestion. Think of it as the ordinary plant that everyone has seen and nobody has stopped for. It was always there, waiting for someone to pull over, to stop, to look, to remember what they were looking at. So, 20 herbs we reviewed till now. 20 plants your ancestors reached for the way you reached for the medicine cabinet. Not because they had nothing better, because they were paying a kind of attention we have largely stopped paying. The sustained, close, generational attention that comes from living near the same plants for hundreds of years and noticing carefully what happens when you work with them. None of this knowledge disappeared. It went quiet. It lives in old books, in the hands of practitioners working in the margins of mainstream medicine, and in the fields and hedgerows where the plants themselves have continued doing exactly what they have always done, growing, offering, waiting. You don't have to become an herbalist tomorrow. You just have to start remembering one plant at a time. One cup of tea made with something you grew or gathered. One moment of recognition when you walk past a plant you finally know the name of. That's how it comes back. Which of these 20 herbs surprised you most? Drop a comment. I read every one. If this felt like recovering something that should never have been lost, hit that like button and help it reach the people who need it. I am the Earth Keeper, and I'll see you in the garden.